He had no time to clean. Bugs as a topping.
India's street food scene is legendary. Vendors line busy streets from morning until late at night, serving up hot snacks and cooling beverages to millions of hungry customers. But behind the sizzle and spice lies a serious concern that most people ignore while enjoying their favorite roadside treats. The question of hygiene in street food preparation affects public health across the nation every single day. So what makes some of these popular snacks particularly risky from a health perspective? 1. Golgappas and Pani Puri from roadside stalls. These crispy hollow spheres filled with spiced water are perhaps the most popular street snack in India. The problem starts with the water itself. Vendors typically prepare large batches of pani early in the morning and leave it sitting in open containers throughout the day. This flavored water becomes a breeding ground for bacteria, especially during hot weather. The vendors' hands constantly touch the puris, the water, and cash without any breaks for washing. Most stalls lack running water nearby, making hand hygiene nearly impossible. The mint and coriander chutneys often contain raw ingredients that may not be properly washed. Some vendors add ice made from tap water that hasn't been boiled or filtered. The containers holding the pani rarely get thoroughly cleaned between batches. Flies and dust settle on exposed ingredients throughout the day. Studies have found coliform bacteria in pani puri water samples from various cities. The potatoes and chickpeas used as filling sometimes sit unrefrigerated for hours. Cross-contamination happens constantly as vendors handle money and food simultaneously. Despite these risks, people consume millions of these snacks daily across India. 2. Chaat sold near open drains. Chaat stalls often set up in locations where foot traffic is high, which unfortunately includes areas near open drainage systems. The airborne particles from these drains settle directly onto the food being prepared. Vendors arrange their ingredients in open containers at ground level, where contamination is maximum. The yogurt used in dahi puri and dahi papdi sits outside without refrigeration for entire shifts. Raw onions and tomatoes get chopped hours in advance and left exposed. Tamarind chutney ferments in the heat, creating perfect conditions for bacterial growth. The serving plates get a quick rinse with contaminated water between customers. Sewage odors mixing with food is considered normal at many locations. Cartwheels and surfaces collect grime from the street that transfers to food items. Vendors often use the same cloth to wipe surfaces, hands, and utensils throughout the day. The SEV and crispy elements absorb moisture and pollutants from the surrounding air. During monsoon season, the situation worsens with splashing water carrying sewage particles. Health authorities have documented numerous cases of food poisoning linked to chaat vendors. The proximity to drains also attracts rodents that visit these stalls after dark, yet these remain some of the busiest food spots in every neighborhood. 3. Pre-cut fruits on unhygienic carts. Fruit vendors use the same knife all day to cut everything from pineapples to watermelons without cleaning it. The cutting boards are typically old wooden surfaces with deep grooves harboring bacteria from previous days. Fruits sit exposed to vehicle exhaust fumes on busy roadsides for hours. Vendors spray water on fruits to make them look fresh, but this water often comes from questionable sources. The salt and masala sprinkled on cut fruits are kept in containers that never get washed. Flies land freely on the fruit pieces, transferring pathogens from trash and feces. Most carts lack any form of protective covering for the displayed fruits. The vendors' hands touch money, fruits, and their face interchangeably without washing. Some fruits are cut from slightly rotten portions, with bad parts simply removed. The plastic bags used for serving are stored in unhygienic conditions on the cart itself. During summer months, cut fruits start fermenting within an hour of exposure. Melons and papayas are particularly susceptible to contamination due to their high water content. Vendors rarely have access to clean water for rinsing their equipment. The ice used to keep fruits cool is often made from untreated water. Despite visible dirt on the cart surfaces, business continues without any cleaning breaks. 4. Juice stalls with unwashed equipment. The mixer grinders used at juice stalls rarely get properly cleaned between different orders. Residue from previous juices remains in the blades and jar, creating cross-contamination. The ice added to drinks comes from large blocks stored in unsanitary conditions, often placed directly on dirty floors. Vendors touch cut fruits, money, and mobile phones before handling your juice glass. The water used for rinsing glasses between customers is the same dirty water in a bucket, unchanged for hours. Sugarcane juice machines accumulate sticky residue that attracts insects and becomes a bacterial haven. The crushing rollers of these machines never get fully cleaned and have layers of old bagasse stuck to them. Fruit skins are rarely washed before juicing, meaning pesticides and dirt go straight into your drink. Strainers used to filter pulp are stained and harbor bacterial growth in their mesh. Some stalls add synthetic colors and flavors without disclosing it to customers. The serving glasses often have lipstick marks or food particles that weren't properly washed off. During peak hours, the rush means even less attention to basic hygiene. Lemon juice vendors keep cut lemons sitting out, exposed to air pollution and insects. The bottles of stored juice are reused without sterilization. Vendors frequently taste the juice from the serving ladle and put it back in. 5. Shawarma and rolls from unregulated vendors. The rotating meat spit at shawarma stalls often operates for entire days without the meat being properly refrigerated before cooking. The outer layers of meat cook while inner portions remain at temperatures ideal for bacterial growth. Vendors slice meat directly onto bread held in bare hands that just handled money. The mayonnaise and sauces sit in squeeze bottles that never get cleaned inside. Vegetables like cabbage and onions are pre-shredded in the morning and used until closing time without refrigeration. The same tongs handle raw and cooked items interchangeably. Meat drippings collect in trays beneath the spit, creating a contaminated liquid that splashes during slicing. Many vendors source their meat from unauthorized suppliers without proper refrigeration during transport. The griddle surface where rolls are prepared accumulates grease and char that rarely gets scraped off completely. Cheese slices are left out of refrigeration, melting and reforming multiple times. The cutting board for vegetables shows knife marks filled with old food particles. Hand washing facilities are essentially non-existent at most shawarma stalls. During power cuts, meat stops rotating and sits partially cooked for extended periods. The small enclosed cooking area has poor ventilation, causing condensation to drip back onto food. Vendors often start preparing late evening batches using leftover ingredients from lunch. 6. Momos prepared in unsanitary conditions. Momo vendors work in cramped spaces where hygiene takes a backseat to speed and volume. The dough for wrapping sits uncovered, collecting dust and airborne contaminants throughout preparation. Fillings are made with vegetables that receive minimal washing, if any. The minced meat used in non-vegetarian versions is stored in plastic bags without proper refrigeration. Vendors knead dough with bare hands immediately after handling money or scratching themselves. The steamer water is rarely changed and accumulates a grimy film over days of use. Steamers themselves develop mold in corners that never get properly cleaned. The chili sauce served alongside is often homemade in bulk using unwashed equipment. Cabbage and carrots for filling are chopped on surfaces that double as general workspace. The cloth used to cover prepared momos is the same one used for wiping hands and surfaces. During busy periods, partially cooked momos sit waiting while new batches steam, creating temperature abuse situations. Vendors taste the filling mixture and continue working without changing gloves or washing hands. The small shops where momos are sold often have visible rodent droppings in corners. Drainage from the steamer flows onto the shop floor, creating standing water. Equipment is stored overnight without proper cleaning, ready to start again the next morning. 7. Kebabs stored without refrigeration. Kebab vendors display raw, marinated meat in open trays under bare bulbs that provide heat rather than light. The marination mixture sits at room temperature for hours, before and during cooking. Vendors often prepare meat in the early morning and start cooking only in the evening. The skewers used are rarely washed properly, just wiped with a dirty cloth between uses. Meat pieces touch the vendor's hands repeatedly during the skewering process. The charcoal grill produces smoke that most vendors inhale all day, but the same smoke deposits particles back onto the food. Fat dripping onto hot coals creates flare-ups that char the meat's exterior while leaving the inside undercooked. Between cooking batches, partially cooked kebabs sit on plates without any covering. The green chutney served alongside contains raw cilantro and chilies that weren't properly washed. Flies swarm around raw meat displays, landing and laying eggs on exposed surfaces. Many vendors source meat from local butchers without checking for quality certifications. The cutting and mincing equipment at kebab shops shows rust and old meat residue. During summer months, meat starts showing signs of spoilage, but still gets cooked and sold. Vendors rarely use thermometers to check if meat has reached safe internal temperatures. The newspaper used for wrapping adds ink contamination to hot food. 8. Chole bhature from poorly maintained shops. The massive karhai used for preparing chole rarely gets emptied and cleaned completely. Instead, new batches are added to whatever remains from previous days. The oil for frying bhature gets reused until it turns black and develops a rancid smell. Vendors fry multiple batches in the same oil without any filtration or changing. The dough for bhature sits in large containers, often with a sour, fermented smell from being kept too long. Onions and tomatoes used in preparation are chopped on wooden boards stained from years of use. The serving plates get a quick rinse in a bucket of cold water that turns progressively dirtier. Utensils used for serving are placed on grimy counters between uses. The pickle and onion sides sit in bowls exposed to flies and dust all day. Kitchen walls show grease buildup from months without proper cleaning. Floor drains are often clogged with food waste, creating foul odors. Vendors stand barefoot in the kitchen area, tracking dirt onto preparation surfaces. The cloth used for handling hot vessels also wipes sweat and cleans surfaces. Water for washing dishes comes from a single tap shared with toilet facilities. Gas cylinders sit near cooking areas with grease accumulation, creating fire hazards. Despite visible uncleanliness, these shops maintain steady customer flow. 9. Samosas fried in reused oil. The oil in samosa frying kadai turns dark brown or black from days of continuous use. Vendors strain out the large particles but continue using the same oil indefinitely. This repeatedly heated oil contains harmful compounds that form at high temperatures. The potato filling is often made in large quantities and stored without refrigeration overnight. Vendors touch the samosas with bare hands immediately after frying to arrange them in displays. The newspaper used for serving absorbs some of the excess oil along with ink transfer. Flies gather around the piles of fried samosas sitting uncovered in glass cases. The dough scraps and burnt particles at the bottom of the kadhai never get completely removed. Some vendors add new oil to old oil, thinking it dilutes the degradation. The green chutney served with samosas is made hours earlier and sits in open containers. The tamarind chutney develops fermentation bubbles but continues to be served. Vendors rarely wash their hands between handling money and food. The stove area accumulates grease that drips back into the cooking oil. Paper plates are stored in the same area where raw ingredients are kept. The smell of rancid oil becomes so normal that vendors don't notice it anymore. Customers see the dark oil but eat anyway, assuming it adds flavor. 10. Ice cream from unauthorized vendors. Street ice cream vendors operate push carts that lack any proper refrigeration system. They rely on ice blocks packed around the ice cream containers, which melt quickly in heat. The melted ice water mixes with spilled ice cream, creating a contaminated slush. Vendors use the same scoop for all flavors without rinsing between servings. Their hands touch money, the cart handle, their face, and then the serving cone. The cones are stored in open boxes exposed to dust and moisture from the melting ice. Some vendors use ice made from untreated water for cooling. The colorful ice cream often contains synthetic colors and flavors not approved for consumption. Contaminated water gets into the ice cream through multiple exposure points. The metal containers holding ice cream develop rust that flakes into the product. Vendors have no way to wash their hands during their mobile selling route. The cart itself accumulates grime from being pushed through dusty streets daily. During power cuts, freezer-stored ice cream melts partially and gets refrozen, creating ice crystals and texture changes. Some vendors refreeze returned or unsold ice cream for the next day. The bright artificial colors indicate the presence of unapproved additives. Children are the primary consumers, making the health risk particularly concerning. 11. Egg dishes cooked in open-air pollution. Roadside egg vendors crack eggs directly onto griddles covered in old grease and food particles. The eggs sit in crates without refrigeration, often in direct sunlight for hours. Vendors rarely check if eggs are fresh or spoiled before use. The spatula used for cooking also scrapes the griddle between orders, mixing old residue into new food. Bread slices for egg sandwiches are stored in plastic bags that get handled with dirty hands. The griddle surface never reaches proper cleaning, just a quick scrape between cooking sessions. Vehicle exhaust fumes blow directly onto the cooking surface during preparation. Eggshells are cracked and discarded right next to the cooking area, attracting flies. The butter used is often kept in containers without lids, collecting dust and debris. Vendors cook eggs, handle money, and smoke cigarettes in quick succession without hand washing. The tomatoes and onions added are chopped hours earlier and left uncovered. Some vendors use eggs with cracked shells that allow bacterial contamination. The cooking surface is often a makeshift arrangement with no temperature control. Oil splatters remain on surrounding surfaces for days. During busy morning rushes, eggs are cooked partially and kept warm until ordered. The plate used for serving goes straight from the previous customer's hands back to food service. 12. Dahi vada and yogurt-based items. Yogurt used in street preparations sits unrefrigerated in large containers for entire business days. The bacterial cultures in yogurt multiply rapidly in warm temperatures, going beyond safe consumption levels. Vendors use their hands to squeeze excess water from vadas before adding them to yogurt. The same hand dips into the yogurt container repeatedly throughout the day. The vadas themselves are often fried in reused oil hours before serving. The sweet and spicy chutneys poured on top are made in advance without preservatives or refrigeration. Sev and bundi garnishes sit exposed to air and insects in open containers. The spoons used for serving touch multiple plates and go back into the communal yogurt container. Some vendors dilute yogurt with water to increase quantity using contaminated tap water. The yogurt develops a sour smell beyond normal fermentation, but still gets served. Containers are rarely washed with hot water or detergent, just rinsed with cold water. During summer, yogurt can curdle and separate, but vendors mix it and continue using it. The preparation area often has no cooling system, accelerating spoilage. Customers eating dahi vada commonly experience digestive issues hours later. The plates used show stains from previous servings that didn't wash off completely. 13. Fried chicken and non-veg street fare. Street fried chicken vendors display raw chicken pieces in glass cases without any temperature control. The chicken marinates at room temperature for hours and entering the bacterial danger zone. Vendors handle raw chicken and then touch cooked pieces without washing hands or changing gloves. The frying oil turns dark from constant use and develops a distinctive rancid odor. Chicken pieces are often not cooked to safe internal temperatures, remaining pink near the bone. The same surface is used for cutting raw chicken and placing cooked items. Blood and raw chicken juices drip onto storage shelves and floors. Marinades contain raw eggs and dairy that spoil quickly in ambient heat. The fryer baskets never get deep cleaned, accumulating layers of burnt coating. Vendors reuse marinades that had raw chicken soaking in them. The mayonnaise-based sauces sit out without refrigeration all day. Cross-contamination happens constantly between raw ingredients and ready-to-eat items. Some vendors partially cook chicken during slow periods and finish cooking when ordered. The cutting board shows deep grooves filled with old chicken residue and fat. Drain flies and regular flies swarm around the raw chicken display. Equipment is stored overnight without cleaning, with dried chicken pieces stuck to surfaces. 14. Sweet shops with poor storage practices. Traditional sweet shops display mythi in open trays where customers and flies have equal access. The sweets sit uncovered for days until sold, accumulating dust and pollutants. Many sweets contain dairy products that require refrigeration but are stored at room temperature. Vendors use the same tongs for different sweets without cleaning between uses. The milk used in preparation is often not pasteurized or is of questionable quality. Sugar syrups used in preparation are made in large batches and reused for days. The cooking vessels show burnt residue from previous batches that affects new preparations. Kitchen areas have poor ventilation, causing condensation to drip back into cooking pots. Workers handle sweets with bare hands while arranging them in display cases. The shop's general cleanliness is poor, with sticky floors and counters. Rodents visit at night, leaving droppings near food storage areas. Some sweets develop visible mold on surfaces but are sold anyway after scraping it off. The silver leaf applied to sweets is often fake aluminum that poses health risks. Storage containers are rarely washed properly, just wiped and reused. During festivals, production volume increases while hygiene standards decrease further. Despite everything, these shops remain social gathering spots where people buy sweets for celebrations. 15. Kulfi and frozen desserts from dubious sources. Traditional kulfi vendors sell from insulated boxes packed with ice of unknown origin. The kulfi sticks are handled with bare hands after touching money and the cart. The freezing process for kulfi often happens in unhygienic home setups without proper equipment. Vendors have no way to maintain consistent freezing temperatures during mobile selling. The ice used for cooling contains visible impurities and often melts into the kulfi. Some kulfi contains artificial sweeteners and colors not approved for food use. The metal molds used for freezing kulfi develop corrosion and are rarely sterilized. Vendors scrape ice with the same tool used for other purposes on the cart. The milk base for kulfi comes from sources that may not follow pasteurization standards. Partially melted kulfi gets refrozen multiple times, creating safety concerns. The wooden sticks used are stored in open bags exposed to contamination. Vendors operate throughout hot afternoons when maintaining frozen temperatures is nearly impossible. The colorful faluda served alongside uses synthetic colors and sits in questionable water. Cross-contamination occurs when the same scoop handles different flavors. The selling cart never gets sanitized, accumulating sticky residue from spills. Children are the primary consumers, making the quality and safety concerns more serious. The bigger picture behind street food hygiene. Street food vendors operate in a challenging environment with limited resources and infrastructure support. Most lack access to clean running water, proper waste disposal, or refrigeration facilities. The economic pressure to keep prices low means investing in hygiene improvements seems impossible for vendors earning minimal profits. Municipal authorities struggle to regulate millions of scattered vendors across cities. The licensing process for food vendors remains complicated, pushing many to operate without permits or inspections. Training programs on food safety exist but rarely reach the actual vendors who need them most. Customers themselves often prioritize taste and convenience over visible cleanliness standards. The cultural acceptance of street food means people overlook hygiene issues they would never tolerate in restaurants. Public health infrastructure cannot track or respond to the daily cases of food poisoning from street vendors. The supply chain for ingredients used by street vendors has no quality control or traceability. Climate conditions in India, particularly heat and humidity, accelerate food spoilage beyond what vendors can manage. The lack of organized vending zones means vendors set up wherever customers gather, often in the least hygienic locations. Economic inequality means millions depend on cheap street food as their primary meal source despite knowing the risks. Some cities have attempted to formalize street vending with designated zones and basic facilities, showing improvement is possible. International tourists frequently experience severe illness from street food, highlighting the gap between local tolerance and actual safety. The solution requires systemic changes in urban planning, vendor education, and enforcement rather than just individual responsibility. Street food will always remain an integral part of Indian culture and urban life. The challenge lies in finding ways to preserve this tradition while protecting public health. Awareness about these hygiene issues is the first step toward demanding better standards and supporting vendors who make the effort to maintain cleanliness.